Okay, now we are good to go. And yeah, so is there anything more that you would like to share from your interactions with Srila Prabhupada or your godbrothers from that time?
Um,
Otherwise, I have a few questions.
yeah, no, no, I'm fine. I didn't, on my group called Hearing Short Lectures by Srila Prabhupada, I have written so much about my understanding of Srila Prabhupada, about his position, his transcendental
Mm,
position. Uh, but uh, I didn't have that much transaction with him personally,
mm,
which really that can be dangerous because there's always a danger of familiarity and start thinking that Prabhupada is an ordinary man or something like that. Even though
mm,
I, I never had a chance to be with him, I would dream about being with him a little while in his personal life just to see what a amazing person he was in his everyday life, just to see it personally. But they say that the spiritual master is the principle, not the person.
mm,
So it's really not important Srila Prabhupada's body. It's Srila Prabhupada being the transcendental guru and the succession all the way back to Krishna. That's
mm.
important. You know what I mean? It's a little hard to understand. I don't really understand what he means exactly. What it's not the person. Is that you saying something?
No, there was an echo. That's all.
Oh,
Yeah, please
okay.
continue. Yeah,
Well, if you have any questions, please, Prabhu, feel free.
yeah. So, my question was like through all these years in Krishna consciousness, and and I see like you were sometimes away from devotee association. What was it that kept you together? Because it's just so easy to drift away, and we see that sometimes happening to devotees.
Well, Maya does two things. It pushes and it covers. That's a
Yeah,
fact.
yeah.
Um, when I joined, we start up where we left off in a previous lifetime, so we all don't start on the same with the same consciousness.
Mm,
Um, when I started my Krishna consciousness, I had complete faith in Srila Prabhupada. I mean, I was totally surrendered my life and soul to him without any doubts. I didn't have to uh, gradually learn, gradually, little by little, become Krishna conscious. I was really completely devoted right from the beginning, and I've never had one doubt about Srila Prabhupada ever. I
mm,
have complete faith in Srila Prabhupada.
mm,
And so, and I always will. Um, so, and to be honest, Prabhu, I'm really just a fool and a rascal. That's the truth. But since I became a devotee, there hasn't been a day probably where I didn't try to become Krishna conscious. I never was there a period of time where I forgot him. I lost my desire to be a devotee, even though I had problems with New Vrindavan, problems with Sri Ram and Miami Temple. Uh, you know, um, still, um, I I could be here 500 years, and I hope, and the enthusiasm and the patience, it can easily gradually diminish. And,
mm,
and everybody, Maya is so strong
mm,
that she, in the beginning, it's easy. You know what Maya is, you know. its
mm,
material nature, its this and that, drugs and everything like that. But as you become more Krishna conscious, Maya becomes more subtle, and
mm,
she can use more subtle tricks to try to lure you away or make you forget Krishna. But
mm,
it doesn't always have to be the case. If you're sincere and if
mm,
you really want Krishna, and if you really, once you tell Krishna once that from this moment I'm yours, he'll never
mm,
let you go. Even if you fall down a little, uh, he still is there in the background.
mm,
He's still there in the background, working in your life to try to arrange your life so that uh, you again. Um, it says in the Bhagavad Gita, I think in 9:30, chapter 9, verse 30, um, that all you have to do is you fall down a little bit, you just simply have to take up the vigorous chanting of the holy name, and your
mm,
heart will again become purified. You don't have to
mm,
do any retribution or any kind of atonement or anything. You
mm,
just chant the holy name and
mm,
uh, glorify Krishna and Prabhupada, and everything will be
mm,
rectified. So
mm,
I've had my share. Uh, one time I was feeling so, I was thinking I'm so advanced, I'm chanting, I'm this, that, and the other. And I really had the idea came over my mind that, oh yeah, I don't need Prabhupada anymore. I can do this on my own.
mm,
And immediately when I had that thought, I could feel myself falling and falling and falling. I couldn't do anything about it. And I just felt completely lost all my position with Srila Prabhupada, lost all my Krishna consciousness. And even I tried to chant every day, and it just didn't have any effect. I just tried to force myself. So that was a great lesson for me, and something that happened that I'll always remember. Um,
mm,
and because I tried to force myself, then it became like a crazy thing. And because my heart wasn't really in it, because I had offended Srila Prabhupada so greatly
mm,
that I was in big trouble. But
mm,
because I kept on, uh, I I gradually understood what had happened and the big
mm,
mistake I had made. You
mm,
know, I can't even imagine that I even did that, but it is in my history. It is in my memory.
mm,
And, um, everything is dependent on Srila Prabhupada's mercy if you're his disciple. Everything.
mm,
And as soon as you think otherwise, um, you break that connection. You lose that mercy, and
mm,
there's nothing you can do on your own. You're finished. So
mm,
that did occur. I never forgot Krishna. I mean, every day I still tried, but it was hopeless for a long time. I just had to learn my lessons, and had to suffer for so long that I couldn't chant, I couldn't, really do devotional service. And gradually, little by little, I understood what had happened,
mm,
a great mistake I
mm,
had. So those things
mm,
can happen, it's a big mistake.
mm, mm, mm,
I don't like to admit something like that. I don't talk about it to anybody, but that was so many years ago, maybe 40 years ago, 35, I don't know. You know.
mm. Mm. And so who were the devotees who were serving with you when you were serving in Chicago? Do you
Oh,
remember all their names?
I know. I just remember Ruja and Radhika. There were a couple, maybe a couple of brahmacharis, but they, I can't remember them. Even if I
Mm.
saw them, because we didn't have that many interactions,
Right.
personal interactions. We just
Yeah.
ate together, went out on Sankirtan, but we were just chanting, chanting, chanting. Never
Mm.
really having, I don't remember any personal relationship with anyone there except Ruja, maybe,
Mm.
and
Mm.
like,
Mm. Mm. So, so were you there when your wife was shot in Africa?
no, I didn't go to Africa. Okay, this is what happened. We were at New Vrindavan together, but Kirtanananda, he sort of had a reputation for separating husbands and wives. And I guess he could see that because I was reading, and trying to understand Prabhupada's philosophy, that what was going on there um, wasn't understandable to me. It just seemed like. So Kirtanananda woke me up in the middle of the night. And I had two sets of the Bhagavatams that Prabhupada brought over from India. I
Mm.
had two sets of those, and I was taking them with me. And he said, "Oh, Mahananda, I will mail them for you. Don't bother having to carry them." So I trusted him and gave them to him. But I never saw them. But they took me out at night and took me to Wheeling, West Virginia, a town nearby. And they gave me a sleeping bag, and they just let me get out of the back of the van.
Mm.
And I was really crushed. I remember the people that I had given my life and soul to. Here I was, flat on the ground in the dirt, lost, um, in the middle of nowhere. I had not one penny.
Mm.
Um, I walked over. There was this YWCA, and I sat on the steps, and a lady was there waiting for a bus. And I spoke to her a minute, and she walked over and handed me $5, and now I have $5 at least. Then I never asked her for it. She just gave it to me. So then I walked down the street, and I walked in this cafe like and sat down, and people could see I was only about 22 or 3 years old, and they could tell that I was a nice, clean-cut young man, but really devastated. So the waitress asked me if I was hungry. I told her I was vegetarian. She brought me some vegetable soup and some grilled cheese. And some man who was sitting over on a table, he came over and handed me $5. And before the night was through, actually, people just walked up and gave me. I never asked one person for a nickel. I had $21.
Mm.
Um, so the next morning, I made it to the morning, and I had this $21, and I thought, how can I still serve Krishna? So I went to a wholesale vegetable place, and I bought a whole case of oranges for like maybe $20. And I went somewhere private and offered them very sincerely and to Krishna. And then I thought, well, I can at least distribute prasadam. So I was walking around, and there was a Catholic charity who were getting ready for lunch to give out food. So I wheeled in the offered case of oranges and gave it to them. And they distributed them to all the people. So I was real happy about that. Uh, I wasn't really so concerned about being kicked out. You know, it was heartbreaking that Ladini, I had to leave her behind. She was there for like 17 years, I think, before she went to Africa. I always wanted to go back. The whole idea was that Ladina and I just go off somewhere and find some place that we can serve together. The way we could talk is, um, I never left the area. I got this cardboard box and put it between this fence and a church, a private place, and I lived in that cardboard box. And when I
You didn't
heard,
attempt to go back? You didn't
pardon?
attempt you didn't attempt to go back to the temple?
No, no, I was not, would have been, I would, they didn't, Kirtan and Ananda didn't want me.
Mm-hmm.
So I did eventually, whenever I'd hear the devotees, this was in Moundsville, when I'd hear them chanting, I'd go and walk with them and chant and stuff. And then one day I did get in the van and go back to the New Vrindavan, but I didn't go in the property. I stayed outside uh, in the street. It was out in the country,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a van getting ready to leave to go to New York City, and I opened the door, or they opened the door, and we were talking back and forth. And all of a sudden, I had a compulsive idea just to get in the van and go to New York. I didn't say anything to my wife. I didn't say anything to anybody. I just took off and went to New York.
Mm.
And
So while you were outside New Vrindavan, like your wife was still at New Vrindavan for
yes,
17 years?
yes, that was the beginning of her 17 years. She
Mm.
was she was quite loved by everyone. Anybody that knows her knows
Mm.
Ladini is a true saint. She really was. You
Mm.
know.
But
Oh,
she was okay to live by herself without you because you were married, right?
yeah, we were married. We were married before we were even devotees, and then again we were married in Tilak by Srila Prabhupada. You
Mm.
know, not personally, but by writing to him.
Mm.
And having him marry us through the mail. I forget exactly how that worked, but
Mm.
she was tired of moving around so much. I wanted to go to this temple, that temple. I couldn't be satisfied. So she chose to stay there because she didn't want to travel anymore, and I couldn't stay there, and
Mm.
I had to leave, and that was very, very painful. Um,
Mm.
very painful. But
Mm.
but I see all that as Krishna's arrangement. Because I had
Mm.
so much attachment to her, and Krishna, I mean, Ladini had her own destiny. She went to Africa. Actually, you know what? It's really funny. I just saw the other day. I saw an old post from 15, 20 years ago that I had posted on Facebook. And I was talking about how Prabhupada had written me because I
Mm.
had written him with this big idea of doing the Sankirtan thing. And he said, "Oh, don't take so much trouble. We already have something like that." He said, "If you want to do that, go to Africa and help Brahmananda, and you and he can work together and do something like that."
Mm.
So I didn't go,
Mm.
but I just so I couldn't go back. I just couldn't go back because I almost had like a nervous breakdown there, having to leave Adini behind.
Mm.
And so in Detroit or New York City, I'm not sure exactly which was which when we were there. Um, but the phone rang one day, 17 years later, and I had always told people, the people that knew me thought I had a wife somewhere, and that I was going back to her, and that we were married. That's what
mm,
everybody thought, and I did have that intention, but I just couldn't go back. I had to go forward. So one day the phone rang, and it was Ladini at the airport, leaving for Africa.
mm,
And I was completely blown away to hear from her. That she was still my wife,
mm,
and you know, and we talked. I wish I had said, "Wait right there, wherever you are. I don't know what airport, but I'll come and get you." But then again, we have our fate, we have our destiny, and we can't
mm,
always change things. Things happen.
mm,
You know, they happen the way they happen,
mm,
and we might wish it was this way or that way, but that's not going to happen. So, and then when I found out, the news came across the air that Ladini had been killed, that the State Department, um, they had they had sent ships to Monrovia, to Liberia, to get the devotees, um, to get civilians off the African coast there.
mm,
And Ladini had chosen to not leave, to
mm,
stay there and give strength to the devotees. And somebody in her group had written a letter to Prince Yomi Johnson, one of the warlords, and they had told him, don't be affected by the demons who are telling you to kill people. Just stop this. And Yomi Johnson, he was very known for killing more of his own men than he did the enemy.
mm,
Uh, so he had his lieutenants come to the temple and
mm,
herd everybody up and take them to by a bridge on the river there in Monrovia, close to the temple.
mm,
Two devotees were able to hide. One got behind the bathtub, I think, and one hid behind the temple underneath. And they had so many men devotees, five maybe, or I don't know, and Ladini and another African woman. So the lieutenants, the men that were going to execute the devotees, they took the two women, Ladini and the other lady, and put them aside. And when they raised their guns to shoot the men, Ladini broke loose, and they say the African lady was later able to tell. She banged on her chest, "I dare you to kill a devotee of Krishna." So they knocked her down and they killed her first, and they threw her in the river. And they say that for days you could see her floating in and out with the tide under the bridge and back out like that.
mm,
Some of the devotees, I guess the two devotees that survived at the temple, I guess one of them, they say they climbed up a tree. I think that's not true. Or maybe they say in some places that they both did. Another place that said one hid behind the bathtub and one behind the altar. But anyway, they went there and they saw Ladini's body. So I'm sure with the Civil War going on, I don't know if you've ever heard of that Civil War was going on, but they had young people in all these strange costumes with
mm,
machetes just slaughtering each other. It was a terrible scene. So there
mm,
wasn't it wasn't like the United States where if a body was in the river that they of course take care of it.
mm,
So sometimes I think of Ladini there in the bottom of that river. And sometimes it seems like I astrally project and go down and and experience her old body still in the lake in the river. But I don't know. That's probably just some craziness of mine. You know, I'm sure it is. She's no longer in that body. she never was that body. And some people say she went back to Godhead, but they always say that when a devotee passes away. Um,
mm,
we've all got a little bit to work out, so she probably, I don't know where she is right now. I keep hoping to see her, uh, or maybe she's with Krishna. She certainly deserves to be, you know,
mm,
or is on the
mm,
planet or in the universe with Krishna right now, or is it some planet in this universe? I forget. Before you
mm,
actually go back to Godhead, you go and stay with Krishna
mm,
first. You've heard that, I'm sure, right?
mm,
Yes?
mm. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, Prabhu, I hope I'm not talking too much.
No, this was very good. I always like to hear from other devotees and
Yeah, I do
hear their
too.
realizations. Yeah.
When I see devotees, I'm always inspired.
Mm,
Uh, I always want to chant and talk about Krishna. It's that
mm,
association is very inspiring. I notice it every time.
mm,
So I'm really happy to go to the lunch program in Gainesville
mm,
and
mm,
see devotees there.
mm, mm. Yeah. So